Ryder Garnsey, the Redwoods attackman and former Notre Dame superstar, has been called the most exciting player to watch in lacrosse. Let's figure out why he's so good and how you can become the next Ryder Garnsey.
27 hearts beat!
If you've been a lacrosse fan recently, you know how fun it is to watch this guy play the game. There's just a certain level of creativity and style that you get when watching Garnsey that you don't get from anyone else. And today, I'm going to break down some of that style and show you how you can put it in your own lacrosse game. By the end of this video, you'll see why Garnsey is so good and have tangible things that you can practice. Shout out to my man Khalif Hawker, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but he gave me the idea to do a breakdown of Ryder Garnsey. I read each and every one of you guys' comments, so feel free to suggest who you want to see next, or if you have any questions about lacrosse. I'm always here for you. And if you're really looking to get better at lacrosse, come on over and join the Lax Weekly email newsletter, where we break down film and look at exclusive tips and drills to help you become the best lacrosse player possible. And the great part is, it will always be free, so I'll leave a link down in the description where you can go join now. So I'm going to be commentating over various Ryder Garnsey highlights and talk about 5 things I notice when I watch him play. Let's dive into this. The number one thing I notice when I watch Garnsey is just the sheer comfort level he has with his stick. You see all the time he has one hand on his stick and he twists it and moves it in all of these different directions that nobody else can do. And this is no accident. This comfort level comes from having the stick with you at all times and just tons and tons of practice. Here are 2 clips I found of Ryder talking about this exact same thing.
I play, a lot of wall ball. Always got my stick in my hand, whether it's just like walking around my house or whatever it is. Keep my hands fresh. Anything like that happens around the crease where it's just creative like that has been done and failed probably 100 times in my backyard before I can even think about pulling it out in a game.
So like I said, this creativity is no accident. This comes from going in your backyard and just trying things out, having fun, visualizing different moves. It's clear that Ryder has developed a love for the game, and I really respect that. When you start to develop a passion for the game and think about it less as something you have to do and something that you get to do, that's when things start becoming really, really fun. And that's the point that I'm trying to get you at. Let's move on to point number 2, which is that Ryder is always taking the extra step to greatness. This means that he's constantly moving upfield to get better angles when he shoots. These extra steps and extra angle help him score way more goals because, well, it's easier to score when you have more goal to shoot at. When you have a little bit of angle and some free space, it's tempting to immediately take a shot. But don't give in to that temptation. Usually it's best to take a few extra steps before you shoot. This is how you go from a mediocre player to a great player. These little adjustments. Next time you're at practice, tell yourself that you're going to take at least 2 more steps than usual to shoot. Over time, you'll get a feel for when you should and should not take these extra steps, and that's crucial. So my next point, and I don't know what to call this, but I'm going to call it slippery shoulder. If you notice, Ryder's got this lean to him with his shoulder. He's never going right at his defender, he's always kind of slipping around them, hence the name slippery shoulder. And I mean, just look at this, he's leaning on his defender. It's almost like he's ducking to get around them. But this is actually a really good thing he does, because it makes it really hard for defenders to push him, because then he'll just slip right by them. Ryder is certainly not the biggest, strongest, or the fastest. He's 5'7", so he's not that tall either. But he uses this to his advantage, since being small means that you can be slippery and sneak around defenders. If you're a smaller lacrosse player, don't be discouraged at all. This can actually be really good. That's what I love about lacrosse. It doesn't matter what body type you are, you can be successful in this game. Here's how to learn the slippery shoulder. Find a buddy or a parent or someone who can play defense on you. One of those football practice dummies would work great, or even a tree. Get creative. Now practice leaning against them with your shoulder and just putting pressure into them. And then practice slipping around them to shoot. It's going to feel weird at first, but then it's going to click and you'll just know how to do it. It's really hard to explain this over film, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. For Ryder, he practiced this so much that it's second nature to him now. Let's move on to point number 4, which is Ryder Garnsey's stick protection. you notice he does an excellent job of always keeping his body between his stick and his defender. Pay attention to how he uses his shoulder to effectively shield his stick. Also, Garnsey never drags his stick behind his head. Once he beats his defender, he keeps it in front of him, where the defender has no chance of getting to it. Garnsey certainly plays this flashy style and takes a lot of risk, but I think his stick protection flies under the radar. If you're an aspiring attackman, take pride in your own stick protection. It's going to result in so many less turnovers and more goals. Also, when you dodge, don't hang your stick back or it has a high likelihood of being checked. And now to my final point, point number 5, and this is my favorite point. It's that Garnsey is absolutely fearless when he plays the game of lacrosse. It doesn't matter who he's going up against, whether they just started playing lacrosse or they're an All-American. He's going 100% and he's not afraid to match up against anybody. Some people might call this arrogance or having a big ego, and even Ryder admits he can be too overconfident sometimes. But honestly, you would rather have a player be too confident than too timid, in my opinion. Confidence is one of the largest components of being a great lacrosse player. If you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? This is something I really struggled with in my own lacrosse game, but luckily I have a few tips for you to build confidence. Well, first off, the easiest way to be confident is by putting in more work than the rest of your opponents. If you know that you're practicing more and getting more reps than your defender, well, you should be confident. You worked harder than them. Here's my other big tip for confidence though. When a game starts, I immediately try to start communicating as much as possible. If I'm an attackman, I call out to my midfielder for the ball when they bring it to the offensive side of the field. When I'm riding, I'm talking to my other attackmen about how we're defending the clear. This communication will actually make you more confident. When you're commanding the ball and working with your teammates, you'll naturally start to feel better, and thus more confident. You should be seriously working on developing confidence. Your mental game is just as important as your actual game. If you're not in a game mentally, there's no amount of skill or practice that can overcome that. Like I said, come on over and join the newsletter if you like this kind of stuff. I'm trying to help all eager lacrosse players become great. I'd also appreciate it if you subscribed and liked the video if you found it enjoyable. I'll see you next time.